Hey guys, it's Jason from Pro Guitar Studio. Today we're going to take a look at 12 ways we can play the E minor chord. Now usually when you think of playing in E minor, you might think of an open position like your E minor chord here. You might think of a bar chord here or even up here. But oftentimes if you get stuck in that sort of open chord, bar chord sort of mindset, we tend to neglect the fact that the E minor chord is really just three notes. Okay, so the definition of an E minor chord is E, G, and B. So those three notes, any way we can play those three notes on the fretboard, we can have an E minor chord. So if you can piece together different ways to play it, you could even have it where they don't line up on three strings. You could have, for example, like if we're playing up here, an E note, a G note, and a B note. So we'd have like string 6, 3, and 2. And that's an E minor as well. But I'm going to show you how to sort of connect these three-string, what we'll call triads, or three-string chord fragments together to make different variations of the E minor chord, different voicings, okay? And like I said, there's 12 different ways we're going to play them, but basically we have 3 different ways to play it on each set of strings, and 4 sets of strings. So strings 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6. Now these shapes, the way the notes work out, the shapes are the same on each set of strings, but the fingering is different because of how the tuning on the guitar is, okay? So it can be a little confusing as you work through it. But just keep in mind, this is just 3 ways to play the notes. We can play the notes where we have the low note of the chord, E, on the bottom. We go E, G, B. We can also play it so we go G, B, E. And we can also play it so we can go B, E, G. So different ways we can play it. Basically, we're taking the bottom note, putting it on top. It's what's called an inversion. So the first way we're going to play this E minor chord starts out with this B note. So it is an inversion, but I'm trying to stick away from playing open strings as well. So when we go on this chord right here, we're playing the B note on the bottom. So it's called a second inversion. B, so fret number 4 on the 3rd string. E, which is fret number 5 on the 2nd string. And fret number 3 on the 1st string, which is a G note. Okay, that's our first way to play an E minor. And if you know like a D minor chord, we're just moving that up 2 frets. The second way, we're going to take that top note or bottom note, put it on top. We're going to play the root inversion. So basically this is the E note on the bottom meaning the lowest note in the chord. So 3rd string, 9th fret, 2nd string, 8th fret, 1st string, 7th fret. And that is E, G, B. Okay? It comes from our A minor chord shape, if you want to visualize it. And taking the bottom note, putting it on top, we're going to have G, 3rd string, 12th fret, B, 2nd string, 12th fret, E, 1st string, 12th fret. So we had 4, 5, 3, 9, 8, 7, 12, 12, 12. Like I said, I'm sticking away from playing open strings for these examples, but 12, 12, 12 is equivalent to 0, 0, 0, right? So you can play that as well. Now moving to the next set of strings, we're going to play on string number 4, we're going to play fret number 5, fret number 4 on the 3rd string, fret number 5 on the 2nd string. In this case here we have G, B, E. Okay? So on this here being G on the bottom, that's a first inversion. Now, just to reiterate from the first set of chords, they didn't talk about it too much, we had a second inversion, which just means the 3rd note in the chord is on the bottom, the root inversion, and the first inversion. Okay? Now going to the next set of strings, we start off with the first inversion, which means the 3rd interval on the bottom. Going to the next one, which is 9, 9, 8, and that is going to be B, E, G, 2nd inversion. And then 14, 12, 12, which is E, G, B, root inversion. All right, so to reiterate those 3, we had 5, 4, 5, 9, 9, 8, 14, 12, 12. And if you wanted to, you could do 2, 0, 0. All right. Now, just as a quick note as we're working through these, you don't need to memorize these all. And it definitely is hard to memorize them all quickly. And what I would say is try to find ones that stick out to you. So if you like, for example, this shape here, the root inversion on the first 3 strings, and that sort of appeals to you, play with that. Try to move it around and change the different, change the root note. So instead of playing E minor, for example, you're playing a B minor. So try to find your favorites and work with those to start off. And then slowly over time work your way up, because it took me a long time to memorize all of these, okay? So now on to the 5th, 4th, and 3rd string root note. So for the 5th string, we're going to play fret number 7, fret number 5 on the 4th string, fret number 4 on the 3rd. So 7, 5, 4, and that's a root inversion, E, G, B. Now these lower inversions or lower voicings can sound a little weird in some places, so just choose these wisely as you work through them. As we go through even lower, it can sound a little weird if the root note is on the bottom. But there's a lot of fun to be had there. So definitely not saying that you can't use those. There's actually really good places to use them. Now next chord, we're inverting that. So first inversion, we're gonna have 10, 9, 9. So 10 on the 5th string, 9 on the 4th and 3rd. As G, B, E. And we're going to go next up to 14, 14, 12. B, E, G. Second inversion. So root inversion, 7, 5, 4. First inversion, 10, 9, 9. Second inversion, 14, 14, 12. Or 2, 2, 0. Like an open E minor chord, right? Now for the final set of strings, this first inversion here on the 3rd fret and down in this lower area can sound pretty low, but I think it sounds great with distortion. So we're going to do a first inversion E minor, 3rd fret string 6, 2nd fret string 5 and 4. All right, G, B, E, first inversion. Then we're going to move up to second inversion, which is 7, 7, 5. And that's B, E, G. Love that one. So a lot of things you can do there with distortion or clean, but yeah, this is really nice as a rhythm guitar option. And then the final one is root inversion 12, 10, 9. E, G, B. So we had 3, 2, 2, 7, 7, 5, 12, 10, 9. So all these shapes are a lot of fun. And then down here, really low. A little harder to make out those notes. It's a little harder to get definition on those. Put it on the bridge pickup maybe. A little better. So those are a lot of fun. I enjoy these a lot. It helped me really learn the fretboard when I did major and minor chords. So understanding the fretboard, how the chords relate to the scales you're playing, all that kind of stuff. And it also gave me a lot of good rhythmic options, right? So instead of just playing, a bar chord all the time, I go. And so you can start to embellish those different voicings and have a lot of fun there. So hope you enjoyed this. This is just a nice introduction to 12 ways that you can play the E minor chord across the fretboard. There are many others, so it's not the only 12. But play with these. Let me know what you think of these in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.